Crossing to Australia, my pleasure to welcome back to the show our Australian correspondent, Craig Heilmann. Craig, g'day, kia ora. How are you?
G'day, Andrew. Great to see you again, mate. And I'm so blessed to be Rhema's Australian correspondent because it forces me to get my head out of the sand and figure out what's going on in my own country. And my goodness, it's all shocking, isn't it?
Well, and hey, to be fair, one of the things that God has blessed you with in the lucky country is plenty of sand. So if you did want to did want to put your head in the sand, there's an abundance.
There's no shortage of sand, mate. Trust me. If sand was valuable, we would be the richest country on earth.
Well, I think Saudi Arabia would give you a run for the money, and then there's
they would give us a run for the money. But look, we've got an impressive amount of sand nonetheless.
Exactly. There are some worrying things in the news, actually, though, and one thing in particular I wanted to start with. Marriage in decline in Australia, not as popular as it once was, it seems.
Yeah, we had a survey. The stats keep rolling out. Back in 2001, women over 19 years of age, about 55% getting married. Now it's 48%. Now it doesn't sound like a huge decline, but actually it's a pretty large number downwards. It's significant. And we've got about 1 in 7 people now living in de facto relationships, so not married but living together, whatever. Look, it's just part of the general spiral in Australian culture. Australians, it's hard to use the word Australia and culture in the same sentence, isn't it? But we do have one somewhere. But there is a decline of kind of, from where we were in the sort of still sort of semi-Christian literate civilization that we once were to where we are today, which is a bit of a free-for-all. But where I see real pain, Andrew, is in the households of single individuals now. 1 in 4 Australian households is just a one-person household.
Wow.
So, I've said this to you before, but we have an epidemic of loneliness here. We used to have this culture when I was growing up. It was always about mateship. You never let your mates down and all that stuff. That's kind of dying and dead in some ways. And so these are all losses in our culture, and it's hurting people deeply. So marriage on the decline, part of the price you pay when you have a sexual revolution in essence.
Just wanted to get your thoughts on this one, Craig, because you said, some people, an increase in the amount of people living in de facto relationships, but also the rise of single-person households and the loneliness that goes with it. Is it that people are choosing not to get married, or that they might get married if only they could find someone?
I think it's a combo of all of the above. It's divorce on the one hand, easy divorce, and it's a combo of people deciding they don't want to live with another human being because maybe we've lost the skills of living together with others in a peaceful way, but also seems to be harder and harder to find a partner. Gen Zs, for example, a lot of research coming out about Gen Zs saying, look, they're the most sexually aware generation that's ever existed on the face of the planet, yet none of them are having sex. One of the reasons for that is they can't form relationships with other people. And so we've got a bifurcation. For example, women seem to be becoming more liberal. Young women seem to be becoming much more liberal in their political views, and young men becoming much more conservative. So they won't talk to each other anymore. The young women are saying, hey, I don't want a guy who's going to vote for Trump as my partner for life. And some of the young guys are going, hey, I don't want some radical, Karen to be married to either. Gosh. So it's chaos everywhere, really. I wish I had some good news to give you about marriage, but I just don't.
The war in the sexes has become a little bit political in that regard, and honestly, it is a deeply ironic, isn't it? And as you say, the sexual revolution. This is the chickens coming home to roost, as it were, in that regard.
Totally.
But for people who are very particular about how they would define their sexuality, a high proportion of these people are celibate.
That's it. That's the bizarre part about all this, is that they're very strongly viewed about what sex is and what role it should play in their life. But in fact, what we're learning is more and more they're struggling to form any kind of relationship which would lead to sex, even outside marriage. And so this is really, really interesting. And if you talk to young people, like I've talked to young people here in Australia, they'll say, we don't even know how to approach the opposite sex anymore for a date or for whatever, because so many things have been categorized as harassment, and there's so much drama and cancelization that goes on, and it's just they're really lacking the skills now. And I read another article the other day that'll interest you. It's just they're saying, look, part of the mystery has gone around sexuality. I mean, in our generation, there was a mystery to the other gender. It was kind of like, wow, this is someone different from me, and boy, I'm looking forward to this relationship. There's no mystery now with Gen Zs. They know everything. It's all out there, and everything's raw and in your face. And with that goes a loss of mystery, which is quite sad, because sexuality rides a lot on mystery.
If only there was an app, Craig, if only there was an app that made it easy for young people to get together and get to, I don't know, maybe somebody could work on that. Or another way of looking at it, if only there was, I don't know, a nationwide social organisation which met together on a regular basis where people of similar ages and opposite genders could get to know each other in a non-threatening, non-sexualised kind of way, and then that might lead to marriage.
Are you suggesting building solid friendships could lead you to deep relationships?
Well, I mean,
I've got a name
radical.
for this organisation, I hope.
It's radical. I mean, we used to call it the church, and as you mentioned beforehand, the church possibly with less influence in Australian society, and this is a global trend. Having said that, though, tragically, the church in Australia in the headlines again for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, so a couple of recent cases that we probably won't go into too much detail about, but obviously people accidentally posting things online in terms of what they thought they might have been searching versus what they were posting, elsewhere in public, and then trying to undo that. You've also got the heads of churches continuing to blow up in terms of, exactly what we're talking about, the sexual revolution taking a toll even in churches. And it continues to scar the witness of Christ in Australia, and it's a real problem for us. And so, I think the church has some anteing up to do in terms of settling how we're going to deal with the sexual revolution ourselves. I still think we are running behind the world and grappling with it, and we're going to have to face it and deal with it.
I mean, you're probably better than me at doing the comparison game on this, but certainly from my experience, Australia still seems to have a more Christian culture than New Zealand, and particularly in terms of politicians having a strong faith and that faith influencing their political decision making. Still stronger on your side of the Tasman, I'd say, Craig.
I actually think that's true, Andrew, that there's still something in Australia where the church still has a kind of a voice and some impact politically, etc. It also means that we probably are producing more aggressive opposition here in Australia in some ways. So we still have a little bit more influence here, but it's certainly becoming more conflictual in the public square, and certainly there are lots of forces now really trying to crush the church under its foot if it can. So it's a difficult space, but I agree with you. I think Australia's just slightly in a different space there, not because it's a more Christian environment than New Zealand. I find in many ways there are aspects of New Zealand culture that are much gentler than Australia in many ways. But definitely in terms of the public presence of the church here, it has a bit more muscle, I think.
Although, I mean, hey, like high-profile churches, be careful what you pray for in that regard. If you had, I don't know, for example, a prime minister who was overtly Christian, who talked about their faith on a regular basis, and then continued to do stupid stuff, not necessarily the best advertisement for what it means to live the Christian life. Of course, talking about former Prime Minister Scott Morrison, ScoMo to his mates.
ScoMo gave his valedictory speech, my friend. He left Parliament and look, good Christian boy that he was. He talked a lot about Jesus and thanked his pastors and people that had supported him. But what's he doing? He's going off to be a lobbyist for selling guns and bombs and the military industry. Which I find kind of interesting.
Look, a guy's got to have a job, but being Australia's Prime Minister and thanking Jesus for all of and then what do you do for an encore? You enter the arms industry. I mean,
that's it, mate. You get into arms sales. Well, that's what I plan to do after my ministry is, develop a better thermonuclear device.
Yeah.
But
what would Jesus do? Guns and bombs.
Interesting stuff. That.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting indeed. Hey, look, I also appreciate that, particularly at this time of the year, tough time for many Australians, especially in the southern states with wildfires and threats of wildfires. A pretty serious situation for many Australians this time of the year. So, I mean, hey, thoughts and prayers very much with you guys. But Craig, thank you for the work you do as our Aussie correspondent. Thanks for joining us.
God bless, mate. Looking forward to it. Seeing you again.
Thanks for joining us on Rhema. Now, if you found value in today's content, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel with the subscribe button. This really helps us to continue to produce more quality content for you. And hey, if you'd like to stay updated and never miss any of our future videos, ring that notification bell as well. Don't forget to follow us on our other socials, which are in the description below. And until then, stay tuned.